Howdy, Aggs. I got a jam-packed podcast for you tonight. We have the Gambit to talk about. We're going to get into all the sports around Aggie land, maybe even a little bit of Draggy land. The draft. We are going to talk the floor and the ceiling for Aggie football, and it is going to be full. We only got about 30 minutes worth of ride to go, so sit back and take a drink. All right, so probably the biggest news on the day, Kenyon Green, left tackle, left guard, offensive line utility guy, goes number 15 to your Houston Texans. He's out of Atascocita, comes and plays right down the road with us, stays in Houston. This man is probably living on cloud 9 right now. Special deal to see this guy go right now. And I'm really glad for him. A lot of hard work. He was a team player through and through. Most notably, I believe it was waking up on the morning of the Alabama game, expecting to play left guard, and come to find out he's going to be playing left tackle and just locks his guy, Anderson, down pretty much the entire night. You cannot ask for a more ideal player out of this guy. That's going to take us into some other conversations a little bit later on, but we're going to wait a little bit to get into those because it's going to connect ironically to softball a little bit. So let me give you the rundown before we get into the heavy football stuff here. But your women's tennis team are SEC champions. They take down Georgia, basically took them out back like old Yeller and had to put them down. They beat them 4-0. So tennis is kind of a little bit odd. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. They play doubles matches to start. And I believe it's like 4, maybe 5 matches, something like that. And between all the doubles matches, your team gets 1 point. So whoever wins the doubles matches altogether, let's say there's 5 teams playing, you win 3 out of 5, you get the doubles point. All right, so we won the doubles point. And then we proceed to just win court 1, 2, and 3. We get the next 3 points, and all you need is 4 to take home the title. And basically, they stopped play early because once we got to 4, it was all over, and we were celebrating on, I think, like court 2 or something. So your SEC women's tennis team are SEC champions. Congratulations, ladies. Lots of hard work. Been keeping track of y'all. You don't get a lot of coverage, and I want to give it to you here. So happy to see what y'all have been able to do. Jumping from that, your softball team beats number 2 Alabama over the weekend. They take the first 2 games out of this series and look like they might even sweep this. And this is a team that's been struggling pretty much all year. You've heard me talk about Coach Joe Evans, and I hope a healthy criticism that you've heard from me. And I want to kind of connect that to some of the football we're going to talk about, but I think what we got going on here is we've got some realizations of where we actually stand coming from this team, and they've probably been underachievers for quite some time now, and I think this maybe is hopefully is becoming evident to the team. And so, and none more hopefully than the coaches, that the time is now and the urgency is now. You know, this is one of the big things that we were going through as we were ending on Rob Childress. And the urgency just did not look like it was there. And you've heard me talk. This is my criteria for when I'm ready to move on. If I'm not seeing the urgency from you, I'm wondering whether or not you've quit. Now, that's admittedly going to be difficult to figure out when Buzz Williams is going to be done because that guy's always charged up. But for most people, you get the idea. I'm starting to see more urgency out of this softball team, from the players, and I think that comes down from the coaches. And not just because we're getting wins, but it's some of the fire that you see in them and how they're playing when they're down or when things aren't quite going right. They want it, and if I see players that want it, I can deal with an L. But not when we're not playing. Effort is free, folks. Effort is free. You don't have to win, but I need to see the effort. And I think that's, in some way, form, or fashion, with all Aggies, I think that is a core value that we hold, even though it may not be explicitly said. So I'm really excited to see the urgency coming out of them, and you kind of see like the new fire out of the baseball team, right? Now that Schloss is in there. And it's refreshing. It really just gives me a warm, fuzzy feeling to see these guys going out. And I'm not, talking about floor and ceiling for the football team here in a little bit. The floor and the ceiling, and really let's just focus on the ceiling for this baseball team is really high. You've got a pretty nice duo starting rotation, and then you've got Palish they came in and closed. For instance, he came in and closed on Sunday against Arkansas when the series was tied 1-1 going into Sunday, and Arkansas is ranked number 4. So this goes in. This is like the fifth. Well, it depends on how you look at it, because series wins maybe only count as one win, but this is essentially, I think, our fifth top 10 win. Maybe more than that if you count each individual game. But we get up early on Arkansas on Sunday. I want to say 6-1, 7-1, something like that. They maybe get 1 or 2, and then we tack on another 5 or 6, and it's like 12-5 going into the 8th. So the top of the 8th comes around. I think they add 3, and they close the gap halfway. Top of the 9th comes in. Actually, I may have it 1 inning backwards, so that was maybe the 7th and then the 8th, because coming into the 9th, obviously, we had to shut them down at some point to get the win. So Palish comes in and just throws a gem of an inning to get us out of that jam, because it's 12-11, and it looks like we're getting ready to maybe go to extra innings. The point I would think I want to make here is that if our bats are going to be that hot and we're going to put up 12 runs, we have maybe a deep run in us. It is very possible. I don't think we're likely to get a regional tournament for the when it comes around to the series, but it looks like we have a really good shot of getting in, and we'll see. We're playing Vandy tonight. I don't think they're ranked. I believe we took game 1. I have to go back and double check that, because we weren't quite finished yet, and I had to get over in the draft and watch my boy Kenyon get drafted. So, but to see what that team's doing now with Schloss there, and to see what Evans is doing, and I think there's a very healthy criticism that needs to take place quite often on the regular. It's kind of an accountability thing, because it's not that I don't think Coach Evans is capable, and got the know to be able to do what she does and to be able to get this team to do what it has. But there's just something extra that comes along with the job, maybe once you realize the writing is on the wall a little bit. Whenever you're kind of getting questioned, it's either put up or shut up kind of stuff. And I think that's kind of where we are. It will be interesting to see how that team finishes up, and then kind of mirroring what's going on with track and field. Track and field is a little bit different, because you've got a situation where you got Henry in there, and he's kind of like a Gary Blair of sorts. So you really need to make sure that goes on the way out correctly. But at the same time, you just can't allow the lethargy and the complacency just to seep into the culture. Right now, the culture is ripe for grabbing by the horns. Let's go, because we don't have time to waste. I mean, we beat Alabama in football, basketball, baseball, and now softball. I mean, let's go, and let's show what we got. I mean, if we've got momentum, let's harness it. But if we're starting to build a culture throughout athletics in this way, and we've got this one loner program over here that's just kind of floundering like that, you can lose a golf tournament on day 1, but you cannot win it. And so even one program going on can really affect your culture. One program does not completely make your culture, but it sure can kill it. So need to keep a close eye on that. And I don't have much influence, but I'm saying Coach Evans, Coach Henry. These are the folks on my hot seats right now. So you don't have to win everything, but dadgum, I know we're capable of more than 7th and 9th at the SEC Indoor Championships for track and field. It's ridiculous. But A&M, our boys, beat Arkansas 12-11 on Sunday, took the series. I believe we had a game with Sam Houston on Tuesday, got canceled for weather, playing Vandy tonight. We'll see how that series turns out. I'd love to get another series win in conference. Your equestrian team are national runners-up. They fall in a close battle with Okie State, 11-9. But, these ladies across the board are something to admire. I think, wow, we can really take something from these folks. So shout out to all of them. They don't get a lot of coverage, and I'm here to give that coverage because I love it. I love it. I don't have an update for the golf teams right now. We'll see about where we're at in a couple weeks, but tournament play, I believe, is taking place this weekend, so we'll have something coming up. So yeah, talking about the lethargy though, from the coaches and what that may make of. There's a good place to have a healthy conversation about having criticism, and I'll mean all this in the best way, and I'll always have, right? And so with the draft, it's gonna be interesting to see how this ends up. Kenyon, like I said, goes 15 first round, and I don't think we're gonna have anybody else creep into the first round. I guess if there's gonna be anybody, it would be probably either Spiller or Leal, but I think Spiller's at best late round first, maybe second. So we'll see if he's going to get some action tomorrow. But we've seen Weidermeyer fall quite a bit, and I think that's where you see a lot of where the conversation for criticism comes in and is beneficial. Clemens seems to be darting up the board a bit, and that may mean from going undrafted to maybe 6th or 5th round. And he could have been even 6th or 7th in some people's boards, and now he's looking like it's possible for him to even go 3rd or 4th. I mean, the impact that these kinds of things make for these young men are just huge. But it's very telling whenever you've got a 3rd round guy a 3rd year guy who had a phenomenal second year, or a phenomenal first year, quite good second year, and then after their 3rd year, don't come out and don't go to the draft. And I was a little worrisome about Weidermeyer coming out, and I think it was a really good decision by Nias to not come out. I think he would have gone undrafted. This happened something similar to Travion Williams a few years back, even though he, I believe, got drafted in 5th or 6th round, but it was much later than what we thought it probably should have been. And this is something that continues to happen. Tyrell Dotson, I think, also did something very, very late roundish as well. And it's kind of like, what are we getting here? And it's just not likely to work out a lot of times. But everybody's got their own set of things that they're going through and dealing with. So you got to pay respect. However, word to the wise, this year needs to be a knockdown year. I don't think Anias has much time to waste here. Missing assignments, drop balls. The athleticism there, the want to is there, but the mental factor, the concentration factor, the execution factor has got to be there. It can't be missing, and I think Weidermeyer is figuring that out right now. That had a lot to do with his fall, because if you're going to come into the combine and you're not going to put up stellar numbers, what do you have left to fall back on? Your tape. And what does that tape show? And a lot of that tape shows easy throws being dropped, pounding the field because of a drop, missed assignments. The potential that we had last year and how much it was blown up by those kinds of things was quite phenomenal. We go 8-4, we lose to a Mississippi State team that We could have likely beaten a Ole Miss team as well. And to go down against LSU in the last second, I mean, we had very easily 3 winnable games. I mean, we were marching against Arkansas, but I mean, they came out and punched us in the face to start off with. So I can't fault us for not coming back on that one. And you got to give props to Arkansas. So the time is now, and these young guys, you need to see this as well, because what you're doing now is going to have a lot to do with where you're going to be projected to go when it comes time, and if it's your time. Do you want it to be your time? Preparation is so much. A lot of the things that Anais and Weidermeyer had problems with were probably avoidable. They just not that they just surely got beat by somebody. They beat themselves in a lot of ways. Like I said, effort is free. It's unlimited. I mean, basically. So, it's not some commodity that you have to, trade off to get. You can go grab it. It's just, it's like air. Take some for yourself. Why not? Be greedy. It's all good. So, hopefully that's being heard. Hopefully that message is being received. Say it in love. I want the best for these folks. But there's always an aspect of you've got to hear it and not just listen to it. So, if that actually means anything. So, on that note, it's worth noting that since 2011, A&M's got 10 first-round draft picks. Longhorns have 2, or I should say 2 first-round draft picks. So I don't want to hear anything about all the other business. That speaks for itself. I need not say any more. So, all right, fun part of the night for me. Let's talk the floor and the ceiling for your Aggies in 2022. I'm going to try and steer clear of giving you game-by-game predictions, although there will be some of that, I'm sure, worked in. But I want to kind of take this by category, and I'm going to give you 4 categories. And I'd love to hear what you think about these and what you think the guarantees are. So my structure is kind of like this. I'm thinking that I will give you what I think is a guarantee from these categories. So basically I'm going to break down the schedule into 4 different areas encompassing certain games. For instance, I'm going to start off with the 4 out-of-conference games. Okay, so you've got App State, Sam Houston State, UMass, and Miami. We're going to come out of the gate, I believe, against Sam Houston, then App State, then Miami, and then UMass later on, right? So we play UMass right before LSU, which is our last game of the year. And so out of these games, what I'm trying to figure out is how many of them are guaranteed W's, okay? If I can figure out which ones are guaranteed W's, then that tells me where the floor is going to be, all right? So for me, App State, W. Sam Houston State, W. UMass, W. So I've kind of given you my predictions for those already, but what do you think they were going to be anyways, right? Not really going to give you my prediction for Miami, whether or not I think we're going to win or lose that game. All I know is this. It's not guaranteed that we're going to win. At least I don't view it that way. If I were going to put a percentage on it, I might give it, say 70, 80%, something like that, possibly. It'll be interesting to see what ESPN's metric is, but I don't see it as 100%, okay? Maybe it could even be 95, 99%, but even if it was 99%, I would not give us the W for it because that's how I'm going to establish the floor. So I've got us getting 3 out of those 4 games, okay? So we're at 3 wins. So right now our floor can be no lower than 3. Let's go on to the next category, and I'm calling these revenge games, okay? We got beat last year by Ole Miss, Arkansas, LSU, and Mississippi State. So those are our revenge games. None worse probably than the LSU game. Last game of the year. Looks like we just drove down to take the lead, and it looks like we're gonna make it a 9-3 year. Everybody was hoping for 9-3 at that. I mean, after we lost to Arkansas, 9-3 looked really good. So that was probably the worst game. They're trading coaches this last year. Ed O is out. Numbnuts from Notre Dame took over. What's his name? Brian Kelly. So we're going to see how that turns out. But new coach, new system. I've heard a lot of criticism about that guy. Yeah, just want to win that one. And I'm pretty sure our team's going to want that one too. So we're going to be playing at Kyle Field this year. So that tells me, that gives me a little more confidence, let's say, okay? So Mississippi State, first year with Mike Leach last year, it was really a little bit confounding, right? Because usually you think, first year coach, they don't have their stuff together. And they kind of didn't for the most part last year, but we really laid an egg in that game. We just weren't ready for that. I think we just played Arkansas. We got punched in the mouth, lost that game, had a little bit of a drag going into that one. Lose that, like I said, lost to Archie the game before. So those were three pretty tough losses. We do lose to Ole Miss as well, a game that we were right in. There has been a lot of talk, some back and forth, and you've got to have heard it, all the sly comments from Lane Kiffin about NIL, the $30 million, all that good stuff. So having lost to them, all that stuff, I'm feeling pretty good about Jimbo wanting to get a win there. So out of the revenge games, I'm feeling confident that we are going to take 3 out of 4. 3 out of 4. I think 100% we take 3 out of 4. Thinking about between these games, you got Archie that's lost quite a few people. I mean, Traylon Burks just got drafted tonight, the wide receiver, and he just tore us up. We took LSU's quarterback, right, and they're going to be with a new coach. And then we've got the rivalry kind of situation going on with Ole Miss. And then I just don't believe Mississippi State is likely to, beat us a second year in a row like this, although we have traded a lot of shots. So between all that information, I think in some way, shape, or form, we're going to go 3-4 with these revenge teams. And I'm really, I'm hoping for 4-4 because it'd be really nice to get those jabs in. But either way, guaranteed, I'm feeling like 3 out of 4. So that puts us up to 6 wins. So now our new floor is 6 wins. All right. Now let's go for the reverse revenge games. And this is Alabama and this is Florida. So we're like, 3-1, I think, against Florida. We lost our first matchup and then proceeded to win the next one. And then we've now faced them, I think, 2 more times. Somebody check me if I'm wrong on that, right? But then the most recent one was the 2020 COVID year at Kyle Field. We drew them as an extra opponent that year. They were off schedule. And they come in. It was said that we were lucky to get that fumble. We go down, kick the field goal, beat that first top 5 win for Jimbo Fisher. We got it at Kyle, huge win. And I'm pretty sure they're going to be wanting to get something back there. So that's a reverse revenge game. More on that in a second. Alabama, obvious reverse revenge game. They come into Alabama last year, pretty much get their tail kicked for a large portion of the game. They mount a massive comeback, and we put it down a couple times. You got the kickoff return by a chain, but they just kind of slowly chipped away, and they tied up with, I believe, about 10 minutes to go, somewhere in that neighborhood. And then they go for 2, make it a 38-31 game. So now it's a touchdown game. We then go down. We get the pass interference with the ball thrown to Weidermeyer, and from there we then, I think it was, we hit Anais for the touchdown on that one, but the pass interference was right before that. That was also, I believe, the drive where Calzada went down, he went down previous, comes back in and throws that pass, right? Huge deal. We kicked the field goal, beat them also 41-38, just like Florida. And so we've got our second top 10, top 5 win, as a matter of fact. So these are revenge games. You know how Saban works. This is not a good situation. You do not want to tick that man off. You do not want to tick that team off. They're highly talented. You got Bryce Young coming back for Alabama. On the flip side, for Florida, you've got Dan Mullen just kind of, exited stage left there. It was pretty nasty from what I've seen or heard, thought, read with the lack of recruiting that was going on. You've got Billy Napier coming in, probably trying to pick that up and make something out of what's been left in maybe some shambles. Maybe it's not shambles, but you look at their recruiting, and they've, I think, in the last 3 years done well, right around top 10 classes, if not all 3 top 10 classes. So they've got the talent there. Their recruiting is pretty comparable to us. 2022 was obviously the biggest disparity. We go 1, they go something like 20. And that's to be expected after a coaching change, right? But that most recent recruiting class is not one that you're looking to make a huge impact. So you're going back 3 years, and those guys likely being the ones that are playing. They've got the talent there. If I'm correct, we do have them coming into Kyle, so that's a nice benefit. Between these 2 games, it's iffy, right? Because I'm not likely to sit here and think, well, we've got a 100% chance to beat Alabama. No way, right? What about Florida? Do we have a 100% chance to beat them? I doubt it. Maybe we're 65-35 on that one, on an ESPN tracker or something like that. So I can't guarantee, I feel like, either one of those. That at best it would be 1. So that's going to keep our floor at 6. So last category, South Carolina and Auburn. This is interesting because Brian Harsin also has had quite a bit of drama surrounding that department. We've got a nice little win streak going on here with Auburn. And it pales in comparison to South Carolina. But if I'm looking at these games, the first one I'm thinking to myself, well, I think I've got at least 1 guaranteed. Now I'm trying to talk myself into 2. So I've got 7-5 on the board, 7 wins as the floor, and I'm trying to think, okay, well, can we do 8? And if I've broken these up, in these ways, I'm not so sure Auburn is an automatic win. But if I'm thinking also back, and if I had grouped these, like, for instance, all the games that I said were not guarantees, so, like, for instance, Miami, 1 team out of Ole Miss, LSU, Archie, and Mississippi State. So one of those teams, I don't know which one, but I think we're going to get 3 out of those 4, but I'll take the one that it's not a guarantee, all right? And then either Florida or Alabama, that's a 3rd team, and then Auburn or South Carolina. So there's 5. Out of those 5 teams, are we guaranteed to get 1 more win from there? And I think that answer is absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. But technically that's actually 2 more wins because we were at 6 as the floor, but there's 2 more wins because I said out of South Carolina and Auburn, there's at least 1 guaranteed win in there between the 2. You would likely probably put that on South Carolina since we've never lost them, right? And so you would toss the Auburn in with the others that we wouldn't play. So Auburn, Alabama, Florida, one of those 4 that I mentioned, and then Miami. We are likely beating one of those teams. And so I see our floor as 8-4 this next year. And I like that. I like that quite a bit. It's not what I'm predicting the season to be. It's not what I want the season to be, and it's not my expectation either. So let's be real clear about that. But that's just the floor. I don't think we can do worse than 8-4. I wouldn't have said that a couple years ago. I probably would have had the floor even possibly down at the 5 win mark. It was a possibility, especially in that 2018 season. For sure, possibility. If I'm correct, that was the season we played 5 number 1s. So Very easily could have been that. So this is an upgrade. This is one of those incremental steps to progress. Now, let's talk sailing. And this is probably easier conversation, to be quite frank, because the ceiling is, for me, the possibility that lies. It's, can I prove that we can't beat any of these? So it would have to be like, let's just take 11-1 for a second. You probably would pick the one to be Alabama. You would have to say to yourself, well, 11-1 is their ceiling because there's one team that they're not going to beat. Now, you might overall say it's likely that you're probably going to lose to one team, and that may be true. But as far as the ceiling goes, I'm thinking about potential. And the toughest team on this schedule is Alabama, and we've proven that we can beat the Tide. And that, to me, puts 12-0 on the table. 12-0 is now on the table. I do not know, was it on the table last year? Let me think. I definitely don't think I would have thought about it being on the table after Haynes King went down. Not on the table. And I didn't have my prediction last year approaching 12-0. I think I had us at 10-2. Maybe 11-1 at best. So that was it possible that we could have beat all the teams last year? I guess I would have had to say yes. However, I still wouldn't have not have picked that as our ceiling last year. It is possible for us to go 12-0 this coming year. Very much possible. We added talent in a lot of great areas where we needed to. And I'm getting quite excited about the offensive line. I'm thinking about the possibility of Cam Dewberry getting in there and maybe making a starting spot. Is a large human being, and very good. And we just haven't seen him yet. So we still have some question marks on the left side. But that offensive line, whereas there's some question marks, I feel really good about how that's going to turn out. I think we've got two guys in there that are going to work out really well one way or another. So with that being said, I think our offense is going to have quite a bit of an uptick this next year. I watched the LSU game the other day again, not to punch myself in the face, but actually to watch Max. And that guy, I'm telling you, watch out for this guy. Really like this guy. I think we're going to be surprised by him. I really do. The things that he does in the pocket, I've talked about him before. His awareness, his ability to read. He may have a few inaccuracy problems, but he can throw down the field probably better than what we've had much in the past. So we will see. We have added the wide receivers. So whereas even 12-0 being on the table, you might pump the brakes on it because you're like, well, what can we do in these other spots that we're missing? But we got a solid chance to make that happen. So getting really excited as this season goes on. So what's your floor? What's your ceiling? You think we got 8-4 in us? You think 12-0 is actually on the table? It's exciting to think about. That's for sure. So. All right, well, Draggieland. Let's talk about Draggieland for a little bit. And we got a couple other things to get to as well. I reached out to some people. If you haven't kind of looked at what Draggieland is, the name kind of says it all. And there's been some back and forth between the Young Americans Foundation and some of the participants or say supporters of Draggieland, and the idea whether or not this should be, I think, an allowed event on campus or disallowed, funded, not funded, university funds, not university funds. It's a little unclear exactly where all the animosity came from. Young Americans for Freedom came out and said something about they were supportive, but also sort of unsupportive, I guess is the right way to say. They support their ability for free speech to hold event and all those kinds of things, which I think is a really solid move. They don't say support this from a ideology standpoint. It may go against their personal values. At least that's what I'm reading into it or understanding. So I haven't been able to really quite fully understand anything from any representatives or anything from Draggieland. They did put out a statement, but their statement was more along the lines of like why A&M would have, say, pulled some funding from them, I think. And I think there's a good, healthy conversation to be had about when A&M should be funding events and when not funding events. I don't know the ins and outs about all the budgeting and the public university and how it allocates those kinds of things. I think Young Americans for Freedom Foundation thought that it should not be funded by the university, and maybe they have a case. I'm not sure. I reached out to both sides via Twitter and told them I'd love to speak into the culture of A&M. I think we all need to be working on this together and be united in that we're searching for what we're going to do with Aggieland overall. One way or another, I want that to be together and not divisive. So I wanted to moderate an event, and I haven't heard back from anybody. But I mean, that's to be expected, I suppose. Why would they want to come on and come talk about that kind of thing? But it would be great if they did, and we could have a civil conversation. If you know anybody, you're watching this, I'd love to get something going. Send them over to me, DM me on Twitter. Again, ATM Cold Chills. You can follow me over there. Have some fun with Twitter. And yeah, so I'd like to see that happen. And it's just a great way for me to step into something that I love and want to be a productive part to, as we all do. And so I want to also help facilitate and make this something that is, something that is just good, something that's respectful and recognizes the value that both sides have, as people, and doesn't disparage, people for just being people, and that can have, healthy disagreements and talk through things and come to some sort of common ground. But nothing along those lines will make me happier than to be able to participate in that thing. So if you know anybody either side, I'd love to talk to them. I think it would be an amazing opportunity. So final thing for tonight, we're just going to work in NIL one more time, right? Because they're still out there, and I don't have much more to say about it. You've heard everything I've got to say about it. NIL, if we paid for the players, you've got to convince me somehow that we outbid the other players. Other teams offered the same amount of money in one way, shape, or form. We're doing it legal. That's the rules. So sue me, right? But if other teams are offering the same amount of money, then you've got to you're still back with the age-old question of why did they choose to take the same amount of money from us rather than the same amount of money from somewhere else? That's the crux of the situation that I'm pointing to. But be that as it may, A&M just announced a $200 million project, and this stuff kind of goes on. The commitment from Aggies is just incredible. It is just incredible. So I don't know if I mentioned this on here before. I have season tickets, and when the capital campaign was going on, I had to pay, just from my average Joe standpoint, it was thousands more per year in extra donations. And that's just at my level. There are some that have lesser tickets than I do. There are some that have way more expensive tickets than I do. So at all levels, there was commitment, and there has continued to be commitment. And this is one of the things that if you're not an Aggie and you're not, listening to this podcast and in the culture and part of the cult, then you don't really understand what's going on there. You just have absolutely no idea. And the commitment level is inspiring. And if people understood that, they might kind of turn to their school and kind of do something a little bit different and not be so critical of what it is that we've got going on. We're talking about $30 million. For a lot of schools, honestly, when you think about the alumni base, this is not a lot of money. It is a lot, but it's not a lot. It's not $44 billion to buy Twitter, but it's money that most teams could come up with if, in fact, that's actually what took place. So, but are these schools also committed in these other ways? I mean, have you even got a glimpse of what's happening over at Spence Park? We're putting in a pond, and the tailgating that's going to be there next year. It's going to be incredible. All the new buildings, and it's been so long. These all have been put in since I've left up and down University. But I mean, it looks like a New York City block over there at some level. There's a lot going on. I mean, there is commitment across the board all over the place. And cheers to you all. You can't speak enough to this kind of stuff. You really can't. And so this new campaign, they're going to be putting in like an academic facility for athletes, player development center, I believe. There are 2 or 3 other things totaling $200 million. Ironically, they've already raised $170 million, and there's $30 million left. So I guess that's where we got the $30 million from. But I'm pretty sure we're going to have the rest here pretty soon. So we can spend that money in this way, and you see the commitment that's going on. Oh, so that's right. The indoor practice facility is going to be redone, as well as the indoor track. So track, you got a lot of commitment coming your way as well. One of the things on this I would like to see, I saw some good points on this. I think it's really worthwhile. Tennis. Y'all have if memory serves me correct, a decent outdoor facility that's going on. Pretty nice. But my understanding is that everybody else has got an indoor facility. I think none more at this point deserve to get some of that than these ladies. So maybe we need to start looking at making that happen here pretty soon, because they're doing the work. They're putting up results. I think you ought to get rewarded. So our school is putting our money where our mouth is. The commitment is aligning with all of that, and go. I mean, what else can you say? There's nothing more to say. This just needs to be a look in the mirror situation for the rest of the schools, to be quite honest. If you don't like it, look in the mirror. You've got an example of what's happening. You see it. So I don't know what else to tell you. Go make your own commitments. Build your culture. This is what we've got, and I don't want others to envy it, but it is. It's enviable. I love it. Everybody here loves it. It's going to be amazing. So, loving where this is happening, where this is going, and soak it up. Just absolutely soak it up. If you don't have tickets yet, go get tickets for next year. Get tickets to basketball. Get tickets to baseball. I cannot wait to go to a baseball game also, by the way. All right, one final rant. Because here's the thing. When you go to a softball game, when you go to a baseball game, when you go to a football game, whenever you go to a soccer game, what's the crowd look like? Do you see those kinds of crowds everywhere? I'm sure you do some places, but don't tell me you see those everywhere you go, because those crowds are tenacious. And we're talking about expanding the baseball field and updating Olsen. That you need not go to more than one game to know what the commitment level is across the board. So if you're an Aggie, this is something you want to be a part of. Get into it one way or another. Be supportive. I can't speak to it enough, because things are happening and it's going to be fun to be a part of them. So with that said, last drink of the night. I'm going to finish this with my lady, and y'all have a good night. Thanks, and kick 'em.